Hey, welcome. Today, let's see if I can make a game in 24 hours. Every 2 weeks, Fab releases a handful of assets for free, and I'm challenging myself to make a game using only those assets. I also need to spin a wheel to determine the genre that the game has to be, and my end goal is to have 26 different unique projects by the end of the year. So let's jump into it and find out what type of game we're going to make. Every 2 weeks, Fab releases some assets for free, and we're going to look at them right now to determine what game we're going to make. Okay. We have a graveyard kit, a sci-fi mech, and fantasy props. Well, straight away, the fantasy props and the graveyard kit can mash together really well. They are different art styles, but that could work. The mech is interesting. Alright, so we're going to add those to the cart. Make sure you select the professional license. Saving $345 today. Last time was $700, so that means this month's total would be $1,000. That's pretty good. Alright, perfect. Done. For the next step, we're going to spin this wheel, and whatever genre we get is the game we have to make. I'm hoping for something good. We need something good. Oh, TCG last time was really bad. Interactive. A casual game. A rail shooter. That could work. You could be the mech. Oh, actually this might be really good. An on-rails shooter, and you play as the mech going through the graveyard, and then the props are just kind of there. Or maybe the props can be used as like power-ups for the mech, or you'll... okay. Alright, this is good. I think we can make a simple but effective game using this. I'm going to brainstorm some ideas and see where we land, but I think this is going to be so much better than the trading card game from last week. Alright, so let's start off with a brand new project. The first thing I built was the player mech. The mech holds the gun using a bone socket so everything stays locked in properly when the character animates. I also set up a player controller straight away because I wanted a clean separation. The controller handles input UI updates and all the aim math, and the mech handles movement, combat logic, health, and interactions. It makes everything way easier to manage as the project grows. From there, I got the core shooting working. Clicking fires a line trace towards the mouse position, so it feels like you're actually aiming. The offset was definitely a bit rough at first, but I knew I could clean it up later. To make aiming feel more like an arcade rail shooter, I added a circular aim boundary, so you can only move the reticle within a circle. And I also added a bullet spread, so shots don't land perfectly in the center every single time. Next, I got the mech moving along a spline. This is huge because it means level traversal is basically just editing the spline in the world. Animations are still lacking at this point, but the rail movement already made it feel like a real game. After that, I added a walking animation and then built an ammo system. So you can shoot, run out of ammo, reload, and get back into the action. Once that was working, I added UI for it. I'm showing the weapon icon and the current ammo count. I used an image of the weapon just so in the future if there's more weapons, I can swap them out. And then I started on the enemies. At this stage it was a simple setup. You can shoot them, they take damage, and then when their health is 0, they get destroyed. I also created a few child blueprints for the enemy classes, just changing their materials, and then once they're in level I can change all their attributes. From there I added scoring, so each enemy has a score value, and destroying them adds to the player score. This is also displayed on the HUD. I created ammo pickups. These actually use the exact same hittable interface as the enemies. Shoot the pickup, when its health is 0, it adds to your ammo reserve. And finally, I added a boundary circle UI so the player can actually understand why their aim is limited. It makes the mechanic feel more intentional instead of broken. So far we're about 12 hours in, so I duplicated the graveyard demo map and used that as the main level. The first thing I did was drop the player in with a rail spline, just to see how movement would feel. It looks like there's a lot of work to be done here. At this point, the player can move through the map properly and the core shooting is working inside the level. I then finished the first full pass for the spline layout. Right now it takes about 3 minutes from start to finish, which is a solid baseline for pacing. And because the spline is editable inside the world, it's easy to configure. Not everything made it into the final build. I experimented with chaos destructibles for pickups and environmental set pieces. When it worked, it was great, but it didn't work most of the time. It even caused Unreal Engine to crash a lot. After a lot of internal debate with myself, I decided to cut it. For this challenge project, it doesn't make sense to have something so unstable in the game, and I would rather focus on what is working and then figure out a system I've never used before. It's something I definitely want to revisit in the future, but cutting it for this project is definitely the right call. There's not much time left. Currently, the enemies are fully up and running. Each enemy follows their own spline, can shoot visible projectiles, and can actually damage the player. I also added trigger volumes throughout the level that dynamically adjust the player's movement speed. This lets me control pacing without adjusting the spline. With that in place, I dropped enemies into the graveyard level and started focusing on layout and encounter flow. It was mostly about spacing and timing, but also making sure it still felt hectic for the player. I also added some basic audio and visual feedback, things like weapon sounds and muzzle flashes, which immediately made the game feel more alive. I used animation notifiers with each step for walking sounds, but this only seems to work sometimes. And now at this point, the 24 hours are up. Things are looking good, but I'm going to spend a bit more time on it just to fix a few things up. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Leave feedback in the comments. Have a great day. Alright, so let's see how this turned out. Bye bye.